Thank you.
Okay, can I ask a question first? Is that
Go ahead.
okay? With the conditional use of the church, since you're just talking about it, I just want to make sure I ask. The owner doesn't have she doesn't have to accept that conditional use, right? He could tear it down anyway. So I just want to point out that if the zoning is more inclusive than the conditional use, then there's more incentive to tear it down if you want to have a business in there than there is to have conditional use in the church. I just want to point that out. If the zoning were changed to residential on that block.
No, I think if the church comes down, the availability for commercial use in that space no longer exists.
No longer.
It can only exist as long as that building is there. And also, if he were to accept the conditional use, the facade easement would be in perpetuity, so that building could never be torn down.
We want to save the building, so we create an incentive for him to save it.
But
Okay,
if he were to
sure,
demolish it,
because
he
if
cannot
I
build
thought that if the
commercial.
building would be torn down, then that property would be the same, zoned the same as the rest of the block.
it is,
Well, if
but
this
that
block was zoned green,
green does not permit commercial use in anything other than a civic institutional building that is being reused.
Or a pre-1930s building.
okay.
On a
just
certain
wondering.
size
No,
lot,
that's a
on a
very
very
good
large
question.
All
lot.
right,
That's a
so
good question.
I'm in favor of changing that zoning to residential on the block.
Noted.
But I want to point out that in all of in the green, yellow, and amber zones, the density has dramatically increased from what it is right now. In the proposed zoning, it's dramatically increased. And it separates all those zones from the red zone quite a bit more than they are now. And so I'm very concerned about that because I feel that that opens up a lot of more incentives for tear downs because there's more incentive for someone to come in and take down what's there. And I'll just use an example of the yellow zone. And specifically, I'll stick to South Narberth Avenue since you mentioned it. The zoning was changed in 1955, the last time it was changed, to not allow apartment buildings, or at least that to the present zoning. And so no apartment buildings, I believe, have been built since then. They look older to me, and I think there was a reason for that, which is probably the overgrowth of apartments. And I realized that any apartment buildings that would be built now would be not as large, and I've seen the setbacks, and I understand that. But I do see a threefold problem with this yellow zoning there. First, the zoning creates a new financial incentive for developers to tear down the older homes, and I feel this is contrary to the form-based code's stated purpose of incentivizing the rehabilitation of existing structures. And I care just as much about old houses as I do about old churches. I care a lot about all of them. And secondly, as the ratio of apartment houses to private homes increases, and that's just 4 properties maximum, okay? But I still feel this is true. The nature of the streetscape changes, and it becomes less appealing for homeowners. And then the third thing is that there's very little incentive under the present code to push the density to the limit in the yellow and the amber zones, but with the form-based code, I think that the maximum actual density will increase because of this opportunity for development. And I think we need a variety of housing to keep our community viable, but I'd like to see the balance of the apartment buildings to private homes stay the way they are now. And so I would suggest that we create another zone, which is closer to either keep the yellow and amber zones kind of the density they are now and create another zone that's kind of before green, or go the other way, keep those zoning the way you have it in the proposed code and create another zone that's sort of bright orangey red between red and amber, so that you, and move some of that density out of there, because I don't think I know that most of the people don't want that much density, and that would eliminate the apartment houses on South Narberth. And you could have the yellow zone limited to right next to the train station and the apartment that's there now.
Thank you very